What is up? It's AboveUp, and this is a different kind of video than what I usually put on this channel. First of all, there's no script here, I'm just talking off the cuff. GameSack released a video a while ago talking about their gaming memories, and I posted a couple of stories on Twitter and I posted one in the comments section of their video. But I thought it would be interesting to do my own video talking about these stories in a more natural voice rather than being stuck to social media's character count. Now, since I'm not using a script, I might ramble a bit, I might sound a bit different than I usually do in my videos, but that's okay with me. I kinda want this video to sound more personal than reading off a script, because it wouldn't really be memories if I just fabricated some story and then read that out loud, now would it? That said, I did make a couple of notes, because it would be easier to remember what stories I wanted to go into by just writing down basic names for events that I could talk about. So let's just start with the memory that I posted in the comments section of that GameSack video, because that would be a decent place to start, as I've already publicly shared this. The first story is probably the least flattering one. When I was a little kid, I've talked about this in the past, I used to rent 3 games every week for 1 whole week. Basically there was this action at rental places where the 3rd game would be free basically. So with 3 games, you only pay for the 2, and for some reason we kept renting these games even though it would probably be cheaper to just buy 1 game every week. That said, because of this I played most of the libraries on most of the systems that I owned back then. So one of the games that I rented was Mega Man Legends on the PlayStation 1. I actually really liked this game, but before I go further, I have to say that when I was little, I sucked at video games. Like, I was incredibly terrible at them, and I didn't like any games that were actually difficult or had any sort of difficulty spike or had any sort of pushback to them whatsoever. So I got to one point in Mega Man Legends where I found the game to be too hard for me because I was a dumb kid. I know the game isn't hard, you don't have to tell me about this, I know. And I ended up getting so fucking frustrated with the game that I opened up the PlayStation and I just threw the game out, like literally frisbeed it across the room. Naturally the disc hit a wall and it snapped in half. It's still kind of amazing that it didn't just shatter, but it just snapped in half. Me being a little kid and, being terrified that people would find out that I did this, I taped the disc back together, putting tape on the black side of the PlayStation 1 disc, and then just putting it back into the case and, hoping that nobody would figure this out. Don't know why I thought that this would work, but for some reason I believed that I would get away with this. And, I returned the game. And I didn't hear about this for a long time, so I kinda got away with it. Which I shouldn't have, but, well, sometimes you just get lucky, I guess. Though the story doesn't end there. A long while later, I got a phone call, or at least my parents got a phone call, and they relayed this message back to me that a broken game had come back, and that I was the last person who had rented it. Someone else had rented the game and, saw that it was snapped in half with tape holding it together. At least that's what I surmised. They didn't tell me that much. They just said, a disc is broken, And they couldn't understand the name of the game over the phone. So to me it came back as Man Manhattan. And when I heard this, I legitimately did not know what game it was. So I was like, wait, what? Man Manhattan? What is that? I legitimately did not understand what the conversation was about. It wasn't until later that I heard from the people there that it was taken care of. Someone tried to return a broken disc and tried to make it sound like the person before him broke it, which was me. And by that time, when I heard that, I realized what had just happened. That this person had rented Mega Man Legends after me and had tried to return it broken. And he got in trouble for it instead of me. And because I didn't realize that that phone call was actually about something that I'd done, I got away with it. So I don't know if there is any moral to this story outside that lying works. You should lie. I don't think this is something that you should actually share, but hey, here we are. It worked. I brought back a broken game and I got away with it. The second story isn't anywhere near as incriminating or bad. It doesn't really make me out as like a great person either, but not in the same kind of way. Like, this is not something where I cheated someone or did something terrible. I had a friend who was in a band and he was really popular with girls, so we went out one night and, he got a girl, as usual, but then he got so fucking drunk that he couldn't walk home. So me and two girls, because somehow he got a second one, I guess, had to drag him home physically. Like, we literally had to drag him to his living place. We were talking on the way there. He was completely passed out. He actually didn't remember it the day after. So when we got to his place, one girl, dragged him in and kind of just found his bedroom or whatever. And then the other girl, lingered at the door and was like, hey, I could accompany you home. And I was like, no, I can get home fine by myself. Because I was just thinking of the mindset of like, oh, she thinks I need help to get home because I'm as drunk as the friend. And I was drunk enough to think that, but I wasn't drunk enough to, have issues walking home. So then she was, oh, okay, and she seemed kind of disappointed. And then she closed the door, and then I'm walking home, and it's like, wait, what? What the fuck did I just do? I walked home and I did what I did every time. I got frustrated and annoyed whenever I fucked up or something bad happened. I played the shit out of Guilty Gear X2. That's kind of where it goes back to here. That was basically my go-to game whenever I was really frustrated or did something really dumb. And to this day, that's still one of the dumbest fucking stories that I've ever had with, girls in general. Later I would have a different frustration game. It would be Geometry Wars 2, but that game hadn't released yet. And by the time that game came out, I had a different frustration story with a girl where basically she was on my lap looking in my eyes like, kiss me, damn it, and I kind of froze. And I think the reason was I just didn't want to get into it with her. Even though at the time I kinda did, but then later I was glad that I never got involved with her because she was fucking crazy. When I was a really little kid, I actually don't remember what age I was. This is really long ago. A friend of mine told me, I could come to his aunt's place and we'd play video games together, for the whole weekend, and it would be great. And, me being a little kid, I was like, yeah, of course, that would be amazing. So, one weekend we just pack our stuff. My mom allowed me to go here and we went across the country by car and arrived at his aunt's place, and, well, a bunch of stuff happened. First off, the friend never really told me about the kind of place that his aunt lived in, which is not to say that she lived in a dump or anything. She lived in a decent house. There was just a whole different problem there. She collected spiders. Rather, she had spiders as pets. I don't know what the word for it is. Do you consider spiders pets? I always kind of see them as a sort of weird display thing because you just put them in a tank and that's it. Kind of like fish, except like ugly. Now, the problem here is I have arachnophobia. I really hate spiders to this day. It might have gotten a lot worse since then because that was kind of the tipping moment where it was like, oh no, oh fuck no, I cannot deal with this. Because it wasn't just they had a couple of spiders, no, they had those big hairy spiders, the creepy big ones, and they basically had a whole wall, like, covered in glass cases full of the things. And then not just that, spiders, the big ones, they shed their skin and they leave the old skin behind, and they basically stuffed that skin and just kept it as decorations all across the entire fucking living room. So I didn't know about this, and then I was terrified for the rest of my stay there. It got so bad that the toilet was on the other side of the living room. Like, you go through the living room and then you get to the kitchen, and then the toilet is connected to that. So I basically pissed myself like twice because I was too afraid to pass those spiders because they were all on the other side of the living room. The front side of the living room was kind of okay, and I tried to stay there as much as possible. Even while I was there, I was afraid of this shit. And it got even worse because the aunt realized that I was scared of these things, so she started making jokes like, oh no, one of them escaped. And yeah, so did my fucking sanity that weekend. But it still gets worse. My friend never told me what his birthday was. It was that weekend. So we celebrated his birthday. which I didn't know that it was. I didn't have any presents ready or anything of that sort. I was kind of taken aback by it. So that aunt thought that I was a shitty fucking person because I came along for this birthday party and I didn't even have a present for the kid. Even though I didn't fucking know that it was a birthday. So, stuff just kept getting worse. I don't really remember much of that weekend that was positive, except that at one point I snuck out of bed because I couldn't sleep because I was fucking tired, got to the living room and, played on their NES. And that was kind of the only time that I ended up playing video games there, because that whole let's play video games together thing, that kind of turned out to be a lie. We didn't really play any video games together. But they did have an NES with Kirby's Adventure, so that was fucking great. I really enjoyed that game, and that was like the only kind of solace that I had in that entire time, because the rental place didn't have that game. I didn't own that game, so that was the first time that I played Kirby's Adventure, and that was the first time that I played a Kirby game where the copy ability is there. Shortly after that, I never heard from that friend again. I don't know if I got excommunicated because I didn't celebrate his birthday properly because I didn't know it was his fucking birthday, but yeah, that was the thing that happened. There is one story that is actually really nice, though. It might not start nice, because it starts with me burning my leg pretty fucking badly and having to go to the hospital right at the start of my summer vacation. So I couldn't go out the entire summer. I was kind of just trapped at home. But one of my friends, actually a really close friend to me at the time, I don't really have contact with him anymore. It's not that anything happened, but we kind of just went our own ways. I'm actually still really close friends to one of his nephews, so it's not like anything bad happened. I still sometimes see him at like family gatherings from his family, because I'm practically part of that family with how often I still visit those people, so that's kind of cool. But I burned my leg, and that friend would come over almost every single day with a copy of Super Mario Kart, which we would then play. And that was maybe the nicest thing that any friend ever did for me back then. Almost every day for the entire summer vacation, we just play Super Mario Kart all day long, and it was so fucking cool. At one point, I think he even left the copy of Super Mario Kart behind so I could just play it while he was gone. And I ended up playing it a ton with my mom as well. And even though I was kind of trapped, at home, I still had something to do. I still got to meet with friends, and, stuff like that is really cool when people do that for you. I kind of wanted to throw that in there because it's not like the most eventful story of all time, but it is a story where like someone did something really nice and I wasn't an asshole, so it's a nice change of pace with the other stories that I've told so far. Because on the flip side, there was the time that I tried to play World of Warcraft. Now, I kind of had a problem with this game going in, because I went in because a friend told me that this is one of the best games ever and I should play it, and I was like, alright, if you enjoy it and, this is a game that you play with people, I should join in too. Now, something that I hadn't considered was that this friend didn't have a job, or at least he had a part-time job, but he didn't get that many hours, while I was working a full-time restaurant job with, really rough hours spread through basically the entire day, 6 days a week most of the time. So I couldn't really keep up with his progress, and I kind of started feeling like I was lagging behind. So I ran an alt account and basically just messed around in, the game world, trying to make my own fun, because progressing and doing raids and shit was never going to be in the cards for me, and I still wanted to have, my money's worth before my sub time ran out. I ended up going to one of the early areas. There was a druid there. He was morphed into his bear form, so I just stood next to him and, pretended to be like a used car salesman, attempting to sell this bear as not as a mount, but as a pet to other new players. And a few people actually thought that this was a legitimate thing because, WoW was still incredibly new, so most people, just starting out wouldn't really know anything about it whatsoever. There weren't that many guides yet. Like, most of the guides that you could get, you'd have to buy physically. That was the era of WoW that it still was. I started trying to sell this druid to another player, and the druid came back because he had been AFK this entire time, and he started to do emotes and just walk around in circles and basically just go along with the act. And that is the only time that I ever enjoyed WoW, by basically attempting to sell another player to a starting player for gold. I basically just set the price too high so he would never be able to afford it, but man, he actually was interested, which is still amazing to me. Anyway, this was AboveUp. I hope you enjoyed this video. I actually still have more memories that I could go over, but I don't want to make this kind of video too long, otherwise it will just drag on about me talking about the good old days and shit, and I don't want to be that person. If anyone has any other like really cool stories that they want to share, go for it. I would love to hear weird fucking shit that people have done in the name of video games, or stuff that happened to them while they were playing video games. But yeah, this was AboveUp, and I will see ya.
Versus Chris Benoit for the WWE title.
Whoa!
Chad,
Cool, man. What?
are you doing?
I think I'm playing Final Fantasy X-2, baby. This is awesome. Look at that. There's Yuna. Yeah! Yuna. Yuna, that's the girl, man. Yuna. You gotta get down Final Fantasy, bro.
This thing is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, it's great. So look at this. Hit this thing right here.
What is that? Ow!
Punch.
What the hell is that?
It's just cool. Shocking.
Well, nonetheless, Final Fantasy. It could be Chris Benoit's fantasy here tonight.